Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Roger and in this week's video I want to talk about depth of field. But before we get started, I have a request. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do, so that I can reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers in 2020. So thank you in advance. So, depth of field. What is it? And how does it work? And what can you do to impact your depth of field? You might have heard about blurry background, and maybe the word bokeh or bokeh. But what about f-stop and aperture? Then we have deep depth of field, and then we have shallow depth of field. But how is all of this actually related? So what is depth of field? Depth of field is a range of distances around a specific line of focus that are also acceptably in focus. So when you have a specific line that's in focus and the field surrounding that line is also acceptably in focus, that's your depth of field. So let's try and visualize this a little better, maybe specify this a little bit more. Let's say you have an object you want to photograph. That specific object is in focus. Then the space in front of and behind that object that also seems to be in focus actually only perceives to be in focus. And this field that's in front of the object that seems to be in focus, and the object itself that's actually in focus, and the field behind the object that seems to be in focus, this space is your depth of field. The space in front of and behind the field that's in focus will be blurred out. And this blurred out field is what we call bokeh or bokeh. When the field of focus surrounding the object is wide, we call it a deep depth of field. That means you have a lot of your image in focus. When the field of focus surrounding the object is small, we call it a shallow depth of field. That means there is only a small part of your image that's in focus. Shallow depth of field is what you want to get that nice blurry background or bokeh in your image, for example in portraits. Deep depth of field is what you want to get a lot of the image in focus, for example in landscape photos. So what impacts your depth of field? Only two things directly impacts your depth of field. 1. Distance to your subject. How far away or how close you are to your subject. And 2. The diameter of your entrance pupil. And one of the things that affects the diameter of the entrance pupil is the aperture settings on your camera, or also known as f-stop. So let's take distance to your subject first. The closer you get to your subject, the more background blur you will get. So if you move closer to your subject, you will experience that you get more blurry background. And also, the more separation you get between your subject and the background, the more blurry background you will get. So now let's talk about the diameter of your entrance pupil. One of the things that affects the diameter of the entrance pupil inside the lens is the aperture, or also known as f-stop. When the aperture gets larger, the diameter of the entrance pupil inside the lens also gets larger, and that gives you a more shallow depth of field. So changing your aperture from f12 to f1.8 will give you more bokeh or blurry background. But this will also let more light into your sensor. So to keep an aperture of 1.8 when you're outside, you will need to use an ND filter on your lens. There's also a third way to get the illusion of more shallow depth of field, and that is using a zoom lens. But This only gives you the illusion of more bokeh or background blur. It actually is just a magnification of the already blurred out background.